I'm no stranger to injuries. Again, I've had my fair share of them. I'm dealing with some now, and it's been prompting me to do some more videos around the world of injury prevention and how to truly implement the right kind of warm-up, stretching, and really what you need to be doing to prevent an injury, but also get the most out of your workout. Because believe it or not, they go hand in hand, and there's a lot of different little subconscious cues that kind of prevent us from pushing it as hard as we want to push it, when we're just sort of wondering if we might get injured. So in this particular video, I want to talk a lot about static stretching and dynamic stretching and when they come into place. But I also want to give you a solid explanation of what is what, which is which, and really what they are in general. All right, so static stretching is the common stretching that you're probably used to. It's the stretching that we were taught in PE class in elementary school and middle school. It's the kind of stretching where you sit and reach and stretch your hamstrings, or you hold in one position and just hold a muscle. And the thing is, it does work, okay? It does stretch the muscle out, but is that what we want? You see, we have different components to the muscle. We have elastic components and we have what are called plastic components. Now, they are just like what they sound. The elastic components are like a rubber band, they stretch. The plastic components are parts that actually stretch and remain stretched. We have much more in the way of elastic components to our muscles than we do in the plastic components. However, if we stretch a muscle too much, the elasticity ends up becoming like a rubber band where you stretch it out too much and eventually it becomes loose and floppy and it doesn't really work too well anymore. So when it comes down to static stretching prior to a workout, you're truly asking a muscle to relax before it's ever had the chance to really do any kind of activity. Remember, you want that recoil, you want that strength. That's what's going to actually allow the muscle to retract, or contract in this case, and give you the strength that you need. So when you do a static stretch and you static stretch before a workout, you're elongating that muscle and you're ultimately giving it that rubber band effect. What that's going to do is it's going to make it so that the muscle is a lot less responsive to any kind of workout that you're doing, putting you at a much more of an increased risk to injury. It's also putting a lot more stress on the ligaments, because now you've taken the pressure off of the actual muscle and you have a lot more flexibility in the ligament that could cause an injury. You see, if you think of your joint like this and your ligaments surrounding and attached, well, if your ligaments are stretched, that joint has a lot more room to move, which is not necessarily what you want to have happening when you're starting out doing some box jumps, or maybe you're doing some squat jumps or anything like that. It's not really what we're looking for. Now, in addition to that, studies have been showing that static stretching actually reduces blood flow to the muscle. It doesn't improve blood flow. Warm-ups, we want to get blood flow moving, okay? We don't want to have that restriction. So when it comes down to science, the science is really pointing the other way. In fact, I want to reference one good study here. This study was published in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science and Sports, and it took a look at 104 previous studies. So it was a meta-analysis study that looked at very, very large scale. And they looked at those that stretched prior to working out versus those that just did a normal warm-up, like simple jogging, or maybe they did some jumping jacks. Well, what they found is that those that did the static stretches before their workouts had a 5.5% decrease in strength and a 3% decrease in overall performance. That may not sound like much, but when you factor in that all they've done is stretched prior to their workout, that's pretty darn alarming to really know that that's the kind of impact it can make. So what's the alternative? Well, that's where dynamic stretching comes in. See, dynamic stretching is like the name implies, it involves movement, it's dynamic. So rather than sitting there and statically stretching a muscle and stretching it out, you're putting the body through its natural range of motion, gradually improving the range of motion as you go. But there is something about dynamic stretching that isn't usually talked about, and in my opinion, it's one of the most important things. And that's the fact that it's activating the nervous system more. What is the biggest way that we get injured? It's usually by not activating the right muscles, or by having overdevelopment or underdevelopment of certain muscles when we're going through movements. I want you to take a box jump, for example. If you were to go right into doing a box jump and you were to get injured in maybe your hip, more than likely it's because you didn't have the stabilizing muscles that were activated because they weren't getting the nervous system signaling that they need. So one muscle overfired or one muscle underfired, and it caused some torque that caused an issue. That's the big problem that a lot of us face, and I speak from experience when I say that's been my problem. You don't have the right kind of neural signaling in the neural activity. So dynamic movement, like going through some lunges where you're doing full range lunges and easing into the movement, or even just doing some simple arm circles, things like that, as lame as they may seem at first, they are a much better process to go through than static stretching. But I don't want to just throw static stretching under the bus. Static stretching has a place. But static stretching comes into place afterwards, after blood flow is already flowing. You see, static stretching restricts blood flow. We don't want that before a workout. But we do want that stretching after a workout when the blood is already there. That's what's going to allow us to increase mobility. That's what's going to allow us to actually increase blood flow to an injury site. So once the blood is moving and once the muscle is already warm, then static stretching can direct blood flow to the right area. So static stretching for injuries and for post-workout recovery only. Dynamic stretching an actual valid warm-up prior to a workout to get the right kind of neural activation that you need. As always, if you like these kind of videos, I want to make sure that you're commenting below, because I'm always doing videos in the kitchen on nutrition, but I want to know if you're liking these kind of workout tips and injury prevention videos as well. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel, and I will see you in the next video.